Sergeants, please start their recordings.
Computer recording started.
Thank you.
Call to the cloud started.
Thank you. Opening statement.
And welcome to the New York City Council remote hearing for the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. At this time, we ask that all council members and council staff turn on their video for verification purposes. To minimize disruptions, please place all cell phones and electronic devices to silent. If you wish to submit testimony for the record, you may do so via email by sending it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Once again, that is landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. We thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Great, thank you. Good morning. I'm Councilmember Francisco Moya. I am the chair of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. I am joined remotely today by Council members Levin, Barry, Grodenchik, Ayala, Rivera, and Borelli. To start, I would like to note that LU items 714 and 715 for the 42-11 9th Street special permit, as well as the preconsidered LUs 718 and 719 for the Cortelyou Road rezoning are being laid over. Today, we will vote on items heard last month by the subcommittee, including LUs 712 and 713 for the Court Theater Rehabilitation Project in Manhattan, and preconsidered LUs 720 and 721 for the 42-01 28th Avenue rezoning in Queens. We will also hold public hearings on the 9114 5th Avenue rezoning in Brooklyn and the 1214-32 Hillside Avenue rezoning in Queens. We will begin with a vote to approve with modifications LU numbers 712 and 713 for the Court Theater Rehabilitation Project relating in property in Councilmember Powers' district in Manhattan. The application seeks a zoning text amendment and a special permit pursuant to the amended text for property in the special Midtown district. The requested actions are intended to facilitate the rehabilitation and expansion of the existing Court Theater on West 48th Street, as well as the development of a new hotel building on the subject zoning lot, which would front on West 47th Street. The proposed text amendment would modify the theater rehabilitation provision for certain eligible zoning lots to allow bonus floor area to be used anywhere within such zoning lots, and the special permit would facilitate a comprehensive modernization of the Court Theater site. The improvements include a range of operational and accessibility upgrades through the addition of a new structural annex, as well as interior preservation work throughout the existing individual landmark theater building itself. Our modification to the zoning text will be to clarify and narrow the applicability provision of the special permit. Councilmember Powers is in support of the proposal as modified. And we will also vote to approve with modifications preconsidered LUs number 720 and 721 for the 42-01 28th Avenue rezoning relating to property in Councilmember Constantinidis' district in Queens. The application as proposed seeks a zoning map amendment and related zoning text amendment to facilitate the development of a new mixed-use building with approximately 54 dwelling units, approximately 16 of which would be affordable, as well as ground floor commercial use. Our modification will strike MIH option 2 while retaining option 1. Councilmember Constantinidis is in support of the proposal as modified. And I want to make sure that before we move to a vote, if we have Councilmember Powers here.
I'm here. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Moya. Thank you, and members of the subcommittee here as well. As discussed, I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Court Theater Rehabilitation Proposal, which includes a proposed amendment of the special district zoning text, as well as a requested special permit, which together will allow the Schubert organization to undertake much needed renovation and expansion work at its landmark Court Theater site in my district. Following the testimony received at this hearing of this subcommittee on January 7th, and after careful consideration and contemplation of the Borough President and Committee Board's recommendations, we support the following modifications to the City Planning Commission's approval, including adjusting the proposed text amendment to clarify the applicability and usage of the bonus area and limiting to a smaller set of sites, while remaining consistent with the intent of the proposal and keeping with the input from the community. At the end of the day, I think we all know this project will help the Court Theater do a much needed rehab on their theater. Right now, as the lights are off on Broadway, it is ever important to make sure that we are able to invest in the tourism industry, including Broadway and the theaters that make up such a big part of it. I want to acknowledge and thank you, Community Board 5 and Borough President Gail Brewer, for their thoughtful consideration and review of the project, all which it reinforces the necessity of bringing this important site closer to an up-to-date, modern, and accessible theater to reach a broader audience. And I don't have to tell anyone the importance of Broadway to New York City, nor the importance of supporting Broadway during this moment. But as we got through this project, I want to say I had a great partner, and I want to say a very, very big thank you to Chair Moya for his partnership here on this project, as well as we have been in ongoing conversations with the applicants and various stakeholders here. I want to thank the entire land use division here in the City Council, including Raju, Arthur, and Katie, for their assistance on this project, and Kate Theobald from my office. I am asking members of the subcommittee to vote aye on the proposed modifications before you. And I hope that someday in the near future, we'll all be able to go to Broadway again and see a show and enjoy the theater. But for now, this is one meaningful step we can take to help a actor here, no pun intended, in the city that has been investing in the arts and the culture here. And I know this is of utmost importance to them. So I thank the chair, I thank all the members of the subcommittee for their consideration here today, and I encourage you to vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Powers, for your hard work on this. I know how important this is to you. So we thank you for your leadership on this. I now call for a vote to approve with modifications I have described, LUs 712, 713, 720, and 721. Council, can you please call the roll?
Chair Moya,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Levin, Councilmember Levin, Councilmember Gordenchik,
Aye.
Councilmember Ayala,
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera,
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Levin, Chair, the vote is currently,
I
Aye.
think we've been joined by Councilmember Reynoso. Am I not
Excuse me.
mistaken? I just see him on the screen.
Yeah.
Councilmember Reynoso,
I vote aye. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
I do see Councilmember Levin. Councilmember Levin, we can come back to him.
Okay.
He's experiencing technical issues. Chair, the vote is currently 6 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, and we will keep the vote open.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Now we will turn to our hearings, but before we begin, I want to recognize the subcommittee council to review the remote meeting procedures.
Thank you, Chair Moya. I am Arthur Ha, counsel to this subcommittee. Members of the public wishing to testify were asked to register for today's hearings. If you wish to testify and have not already done so, we ask that you please visit the New York City Council website at www.council.nyc. That's to sign up.
What can the people in shelter do to help get the bill passed?
I'm sorry, Chair, this is Councilmember.
Okay.
Is that Councilmember Levin?
Yes,
Call the mayor.
Vote on the
I just want to vote aye on all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm doing two things at once, two Zooms at once. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you. Chair, the vote on the land use items are 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, with no abstentions, and the items will be recommended for approval to the full land use committee.
Great. Thank you.
For members of the public wishing to testify, if you have not already done so, we ask that you please visit the New York City Council website at www.council.nyc.gov to sign up. Members of the public may also view a live stream broadcast of this hearing at the council's website. As a technical note, for the benefit of the viewing public, if you need an accessible version of this presentation, please send an email request to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. When called to testify, individuals appearing before the subcommittee will remain muted until recognized by the chair to speak. Applicant teams will be recognized as a group and called first. Members of the public will be called and recognized in groups of up to 4 names at a time. When the chair recognizes you, your microphone will be unmuted. Please take a moment to check your device and confirm that your microphone is on before you begin speaking. There is a slight delay in the unmuting process. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per witness. If you have additional testimony you would like the subcommittee to consider, or if you wish to submit written testimony instead of appearing before the subcommittee, you may email it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number and/or project name in the subject line of your email. During the hearing, council members with questions should use the Zoom raise hand function. The raise hand button should appear at the bottom of your participants panel. Council members with questions will be announced in order as they raise their hands, and Chair Moya will then recognize members to speak. Witnesses are requested to remain in the meeting until excused by the chair, as council members may have questions. Finally, there will be pauses over the course of this meeting for various technical reasons, and we ask that you please be patient as we work through any issues. Chair Moya will now continue with today's agenda items.
Thank you, Arthur. I now open the public hearing on pre-considered LU items for the 9114 Fifth Avenue rezoning proposal under ULURPS numbers C190447 ZMK and N190448 ZRK relating to property in Councilmember Brandon's district in Brooklyn. The proposal seeks a zoning map amendment to change an existing C82 district to an R7A C24 district and a related zoning text amendment to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing area utilizing options 1 and 2. The proposed action would facilitate the development of a new 9-story mixed-use building with 50 dwelling units, up to 15 of which would be affordable, as well as ground floor commercial use. Council, if you please call up the first panel for this item.
The applicant panel for this item includes Richard Lobel and Fayan Beitan, and use counsel for the applicant, and Dr. Ankit Mehta on behalf of the applicant. Panelists, if you have not already done so, please accept the unmute request to begin speaking. In order to begin to speak.
Council, if you could please administer the affirmation.
Panelists, please raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions?
I do.
I do. Thank you. Thank you. Now we have received your slideshow presentation for this proposal. When you are ready to present it, please say so, and it will be displayed on screen by our staff. Slides will be advanced when you say next. Please note that there may be a slight delay in both the initial loading and the advancing of slides. As a technical note for the benefit of the viewing public, if you need an accessible version of this presentation, please send an email to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. And now if the panelists would please restate your names and affirmation for the record, you may begin.
Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. Good morning.
Good morning.
So if the presentation cannot be posted, I would be happy to run through it and happy to answer any questions.
Great.
Good morning, Chair Moya, council members. I'm pleased to join Dr. Mehta as well as Fan Baton from my office to present the 9114 Fifth Avenue rezoning. As was stated by Chair Moya, this rezoning would take an existing C82 zoning district and allow for an R7A C24 district to produce the roughly 9-story building that you see in front of you. Next slide. So as you can see, the current zoning of the property is CA2 within the Bay Ridge Special District. So what does this allow? CA2 districts are intensive commercial districts, allowing manufacturing, auto-related uses, very environmentally insensitive uses And so with regards to the local area, you have an area where you have a lot of residential and community facility uses in the immediate area of this property, including a 4-story school across the street. And so generally speaking, the land use on this block and with these properties does not really reflect the context of the area, which is why the applicant here sought the rezoning. Next slide. So the rezoning here would take roughly 11 or 12 properties, including parts of certain lots, and rezone them to an R7A with C24. The rezoning would be in a roughly L-shaped pattern. The properties included within the zoning district area to be rezoned basically fall into one of two types of uses. The one is open parking and truck storage, which is primarily what is used by the applicant, auto sales, those commercial uses that were indicated by a CA2. And the second is mixed use residential and commercial properties, which right now are non-conforming and will become conforming under the proposed rezoning. Next slide. So the land use in the area, as can be seen from the map, you can see the mixed use and residential properties located in pale orange and yellow within the rezoning area. The rezoning area is bounded by the dotted area on the map, and the development site is located within the red lines. The development site has two arms to it, one along 5th Avenue, the other along 92nd Street, with a rough lot area of short of 10,000 square feet, roughly 9,800 square feet. So you can see the applicant and the site maintain very good street frontage. There's frontage along 5th Avenue, a wide street here. It's basically, as per other rezonings we've done in Brooklyn, a good site, a good candidate for rezoning to mixed use residential. Next slide. So we've included some photographs of the project area as well as the surrounding area. I think that there's 3 pages of photographs. You can feel free to page through those quickly, just merely to show the 2 types of property here. Again, the open use on the site itself and the mixed use residential and with ground floor commercial, which are existing in the area and would become conforming pursuant to the rezoning. Here's a copy of the zoning change map, which indicates the former CA2 zoning district within the Bay Ridge Special District, and then after that, the R7A C24 zoning district, allowing for ground floor commercial with residential use above. The next page and remaining slides run through the zoning calculations as well as the proposed development. The proposed development on this lot would produce a roughly 4.59 FAR building of 9 stories with ground floor commercial and residential above. The units would total roughly 41 units with approximately 12 units for affordable MIH and the remainder being market rate. These are a mixture of studios 1s and 2s. I would note prior to taking any questions, and again, we're happy to answer any questions posed by the council, that this was a rezoning which was greatly supported in the surrounding area, as has been previously discussed on the record through the city planning meetings. This was a property which was eligible as a CA2 to have legal hotel development. There were actually, as a matter of public record, on file with Department of Buildings, plans for a hotel on this site. Through an iterative process and a lot of good work on behalf of the community board and especially Councilmember Justin Brannan, the community basically said no. They said that this context of this area does not really fit with a commercial use such as a hotel, and had far more, were far more favorably inclined to allow for mixed use residential development with inclusionary housing, which is something which is not, not really frequently provided in Community Board 10 Brooklyn. So we're really happy to have arrived at this point. Again, Councilmember Brannan is largely, through his efforts, has really labored to make this a rezoning which would work for the area and for the applicant, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Just a couple of questions dealing with the affordable housing. The application maps both options 1 and 2. What MIH option is the developer planning to use?
So this is actually a subject of some discussion. Unlike many rezonings where the applicant of their own accord approaches the city for a rezoning and so, accepts the the options available under MIH, this applicant has essentially had very extensive conversations, both with the community board and specifically with Councilmember Brannan regarding affordability, has provided spreadsheets with regards to specific options and unit counts. So Chair Moya, in all frankness, the council member, as recently as this morning through these discussions, has said that he has almost finalized his view on what the option should be. And so he actually requested of me that we further discuss this and provide the council subsequent to the hearing with a final count, which is going to specifically relay units and options. But right now it is mapped option 1 and 2. And that's, we haven't really come off of that, but I do know that Councilmember Brannan is reviewing this intently and will be able to provide an answer to the council shortly.
Okay, so you don't have the ability to tell me the unit size mix of affordable units?
The units, no, the unit size mix I'm able to tell you. There are 10 studios, currently 11 one-bedrooms and 20 two-bedrooms. The affordable units roughly now are 12 of those units, which...
Say that again, Richard. I missed the first part.
Oh, I apologize. 10 studios, 11 one-bedrooms, and 10 studios, 11 one-bedrooms, and 22 bedrooms for a total of 41.
Okay.
With roughly, I understand, 12 to 13 of those units as affordable units. With regards to the specific affordability and options, that's what has not yet been finally settled, but which we anticipate settling with the council member shortly.
Okay. Great. And are you proposing to partner with a local non-for-profit organization to be the administering agent for the affordable housing?
We are. We've had those conversations, throughout the process. The Brooklyn Borough president is obviously very interested and has historically been in the use of a local nonprofit. We understand that as part of the administering agent, there's a short list from HPD, and so we're happy to partner with a local administering agent. So we would anticipate doing so here.
Okay. Dealing with the ground floor commercial space, what plans do you have for the commercial use of the proposed development?
So, I don't think that this is something which has been greatly researched by the developer here. Other than, and the community board did not express a huge preference either way. There was a great push here that they didn't want a hotel. Barring that, the commercial uses remain fairly open. We would anticipate something that would be amenable to local retail. The space is not that huge. It is less than 9,000 square feet or roughly that of commercial space. The frontages are kind of skewed. So we would anticipate kind of a small scale local retail use. Okay.
And will there be any outreach to determine community-oriented retail needs, preferences at all?
The applicant here has had an incredible amount of discourse with the local community beginning prior to even when the rezoning began, when there were these alternate plans for the site. So I would say that yes, there would be discourse with Brooklyn Community Board 10. We're happy to consult with them as far as what they would view to be as advantageous for the site. Again, this is really a rezoning which has been fully supported and even advocated for by the community. So we have no issue with going to them and having that discussion. Without speaking for the applicant, I would say it's his preference to have a use which would be favored by the local community.
Great. Also, can you describe your plans for local hiring and construction?
Yes. So, I think the applicant here has received received information from the Brooklyn Borough president about preferences for local hiring and NWBE. I think that there would be a preference for that. I don't have any numbers to give you, primarily because again, this was basically a process where the applicant didn't even know that they were going to get a mixed-use residential commercial building until relatively late in the game. So I would say that this is something that the applicant would discuss. It's not, this is not anything definitive right now, but we understand the preference, and particularly from the Brooklyn Borough president, And I'd say it's something that we're happy to discuss on a going forward basis.
Okay, so this is important, just to make sure we follow up on this, because my follow-up question is how many
Right.
hires would you actually typically be involved in a project like this? So, we'd like to have those numbers.
Sure. I think, Chair Moya, because I don't want to waste the council's time and the committee's time, the subcommittee's time, I think that what we would do here would be when the conversation with Justin Brannan, with Councilmember Brannan is finalized with regards to the affordability, we would also include within those materials a discussion of the construction jobs that would likely be generated by this, as well as the rough percentages for local hiring.
Okay. And would you commit in that process to ensure that there's follow-up and progress reports on the commitments that are made?
Yeah, I don't know whether or not, I know Dr. Mehta is on the phone again, or on the Zoom call. I think we would definitely commit to following up with the council or necessary parties regarding the ongoing commitments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Richard. That's it for me as far as questions. I now want to invite my colleagues to ask questions. If you have any questions for the applicant panel, please use the raise hand button on the participant panel. Council, are there any council members that have any questions?
No, Chair, I see no members with questions for the panel.
Okay, there being no further questions, the applicant panel is excused. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on the 9114 Fifth Avenue rezoning application?
If there are any members of the public who wish to testify on the 9114 Fifth Avenue rezoning proposal, please press the raise hand button now. The meeting will briefly stand at ease while we check for members of the public. Chair Moya, I see no members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Okay. There being no members of the public who wish to testify on the 9114 Fifth Avenue rezoning proposal. I'm sorry. Hold on, I just lost my place here. Okay, there being no members of the public who wish to testify on 9114 Fifth Avenue rezoning proposal under ULURP's number C190447ZMK and N90448ZRK. The public hearing is now closed and the item is laid over. I now open the public hearing on the pre-considered LU item for the 214-32 Hillside Avenue rezoning proposal under ULURP number C00190ZMKQ relating to property in Councilmember Grudenchuk's district in Queens. The proposal seeks a zoning map amendment to change an R2 district to an R2C23 district. The proposed action would facilitate the development of a two-story commercial building, which would include 5 accessory parking spaces and 1 loading berth. Before we hear from the applicant, I'd like to give my colleague, Councilmember Grudenchuk, the opportunity to make some remarks. Do we have Barry G?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in my over 5 years in the council, I will note for the record that this is the first land use application to get this far. We're kind of tough in Eastern Queens, but it has been a pleasure to work with the applicant. I met with them along with the land use staff of the council. I will note that they are taking what is a rundown, shabby looking garage currently and turning it into office space. That's their hope anyway, and a pharmacy and We met with the community board and it passed the community board, I believe 41-1, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to listen one more time this morning, but this application does have my support, and I thank you for bringing it here this morning, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Grodenchik. Council, if you can please call the first panel for this item.
The applicant panel includes Richard Lobel and Frank Noriega, Land Use Counsel for the applicant. Panelists, if you have not already done so, please accept the unmute request in order to begin to speak.
Okay, and Council, if you can please administer the affirmation.
Panelists, please raise your right hands. Okay, Richard Lobel, you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions?
I do.
Thank you. We are in receipt of your slideshow presentation for this proposal. When you are ready to present the slideshow, please say so, and it will be displayed on screen by our staff. The slide will be advanced when we say next. Please note that there may be a slight delay in both the initial loading and the advancing of slides. Once again, anyone who requires an accessible version of this presentation may send an email request to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. And now, if the panelists would please restate your name and affirmation for the record, you may begin.
Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. Good morning.
Good morning. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. If you can post a presentation, that would be great. For what Councilmember Grodenchik now has told us is a historic rezoning, having gotten this far. Very excited. So you can see before you the property. This is the Hillside Avenue rezoning. The property being between 215th Street and Vanderveer Street along Hillside Avenue. As you can see from the initial picture, this property currently is home to a auto repair and used car sale lot. It is an unattractive lot. This was the previous use of the site, not the applicant's use of the site. The applicant has since purchased the site and demolished it. However, this was the subject of BSA variance granted in 1992 that would permit these legal uses at the site. These are historic uses at the site, having been there for greater than 30 years. So as Councilmember Grodenchik has said, this is something which the community has been in favor of. It was a 41-1 vote at Community Board 13. And so we're happy to bring this rezoning to the council. Next slide.
Just 1 second, Richard. I think you're on mute.
Got me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Great, thank you. So you will see the zoning map here demonstrates the current use of the area. This is R2. And you can see also that Hillside Avenue, which is a commercial thoroughfare in the avenue, has a commercial presence here with regards to commercial districts. Roughly 14 of the surrounding 25 blocks have a commercial overlay along the southern portion of Hillside Avenue. So this rezoning is definitely within the context of the surrounding area. Next slide. The next slide is the tax map, which demonstrates the zoning district boundary. You can see that the zoning district here would be a 100-foot deep commercial C23 overlay along Hillside on the southern portion of the street. And this would cover the applicant's site, a roughly 11,000 square foot site, absent a small piece, and the 5 lots immediately to the east and northeast of the subject site. To note, this is a use rezoning, not a bulk rezoning. The underlying R2 remains unchanged. This would merely allow a commercial use within the property at the site, as well as in neighboring sites. Next slide. Importantly here, there are roughly 6 lots included within the rezoning, and you will see that in addition to the applicant site, which as discussed has an existing commercial use, or one that has recently been terminated, the surrounding 5 lots along Hillside here to 15th Street all have ground floor commercial with residential above. So these properties are all existing R2 with commercial. While the rezoning here would not allow for any new development on the site, given that there's no additional bulk allowed, it would legalize or actually make conforming these non-conforming uses, thus greatly benefiting the existing property owners along this block frontage. Next slide. So again, as with every slide, we include photos of the site. Please feel free to page through the next 4 pages. You can see the commercial use on the ground floor of the site, as well as the surrounding buildings. All of those buildings, again, reflect 2-story buildings with ground floor commercial with residential above. This is the zoning change map, which again, as you can see, merely takes the existing R2 and puts down a 100-foot C23 commercial overlay. Next slide. The remaining slides demonstrate the proposal for the site. As was stated by Councilmember Grodenchik, this would be commercial use of the applicant, Farbest Pharmaceuticals. Mr. Munir Islam and Intikhab Ahmed are 2 of the executive officers of the pharmaceutical company. They have additional locations in the city. This would allow for a ground floor local retail pharmacy use of roughly 6,000 to 7,000 square feet with administrative offices above of roughly 2,500 square feet. This would produce a relatively attractive building in an area right now where you've got used car, auto sales, and repair. Next slide. So again, this just merely shows the massing of the site. As you feel free to page through the remaining photos or the remaining plans, we would merely say that this was a fantastic process we had with Community Board 13 Queens. You will see that, for example, the loading on the site is now along Hillside Avenue. This was requested by Community Board 13 Queens in order to minimize disruption to the residential neighbors on Vanderveer Street. The applicant was happy to comply with this, as well as with plantings, lightings, and really whatever was requested by the community board. So it's been a wonderful process. The applicant is quite excited to open here. The local area expressed interest in having a local retail pharmacy here that would be utilized by members of the surrounding community. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Richard. Just 2 quick questions here. How do you respond to the borough president's recommendation to reach a goal of 30% of the local hiring and the use of MWBE businesses during the construction and the development of the project?
Right, so Chair Moya, the square footage of this project is small, really tiny. I mean, it's a 9,500 square foot building that is proposed. Understanding that, I would say that the applicant here particularly has been so engaged with the community and really has really bent over backwards to try to accommodate every request that was made of them. That in my conversations with them, they said that they would be happy to attempt to achieve the Queensborough president recommendations. Again, it is a small project. We don't think that there will be a lot of jobs generated, but we would be happy to at least make that attempt. And again, to, as has been requested previously by the council, to inform and update the council with regards to our efforts in that regard.
Okay, great. And just my last question before I turn it over to Councilmember Grodenchik. How do you respond to the community board's recommendation that all the exterior lighting for the security purposes should be inward facing with respect to the residential neighborhoods, the residential neighbors, and a gateway across the rear parking area when the pharmacy is closed?
The applicant is happy to comply with both these requests, not only for the comfort of the surrounding community, but also for the security of the site itself. So this is happy to do it. It's a win-win for everybody.
Great. Thank you, Richard. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Grodenchik, for some questions.
I just want to say, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your questions, and I want to thank the applicant. They were very straightforward with us. They were very accommodating. I also want to note that, my area is not very well served by mass transit, and this portion of Hillside Avenue is at least relatively close to mass transit. There are many bus lines that pass right in front of the applicant's site, and they are, I wouldn't say they're really within walking distance of the subway, but they're much closer to the subway than some of the other parts of my district. So, and I want to, they have worked with everybody and they've been very responsive to the need. We do have a residential community just south of this site, and it extends all the way south to Jamaica Avenue. And I appreciate what they've tried to do. And we have met with the gentleman he mentioned, and they have been very accommodating. So I have no other issues with this. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lobel, as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Denchik. Council, do we have any other council members that have any questions for the panel?
No, Chair, I see no members with questions for the panel.
Okay. There being no further questions, the applicant panel is excused. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on the 214-32 Hillside Avenue rezoning application?
If there are any members of the public who wish to testify on the 214-32 Hillside Avenue rezoning proposal, please press the raise hand button now. The meeting will briefly stand at ease while we check for members of the public. Chair Moya, I see no members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Okay, thank you. There being no members of the public who wish to testify on the 214-32 Hillside Avenue rezoning proposal under ULURP number C200190ZMQ, the public hearing is now closed and the item is laid over. I just want to check with our council. We've all the votes have been
Yes,
cast.
Chair, we have the votes have been recommended to the full land use committee for adoption.
Great, thank you. And that concludes today's business. I would like to thank the members of the public, my colleagues, subcommittee council, land use and other council staff, and the Sergeant at Arms for participating in today's meeting. This meeting is here.